I'm just blown away, to be honest, about the diversity that's in the ocean and the diversity of animals that we respond to. So anytime we get a leopard seal, we actually have to call the police. Sometimes, with the world where it is at the moment on a personal level, you lose a bit of, faith in humanity sometimes. And this really was one of those restoration moments for me where I thought, oh goodness, like what a beautiful community I live in.
Hello, Greativerse listeners. It is fantastic to have you joining the podcast today. The focus of the show is incredible people doing incredible things to make the universe we live in a greater place. And today I am joined by Pip Jacobs from ORRCA. ORRCA stands for the Organization for the Rescue and Research of Cetaceans. In plain English, they focus on the rescue, research, conservation, protection, and welfare of the amazing ocean species in Australia, including whales, dolphins, seals, and dugongs. Pip will share stories with you of the wonderful work ORRCA are doing and have been doing over the last 40 years, with all of the rescues and recoveries made possible through an incredible network of 1,200 volunteers across the east coast of Australia. This podcast is about majestic marine life, the true inspiration behind the saying white whale, caring communities, and calling the police on a leopard seal. I am absolutely thrilled to be joined by Pip from ORRCA today. What an incredible opportunity it is to have a great conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to tell you all about ORRCA.
And from what I understand, ORRCA started with a really small group of volunteers, and you now have the most insane amount of volunteers. And I understand you're bringing on even more. So I think you told me 1,200 volunteers now and an additional 400 coming on board this year.
That's right. So ORRCA started 40 years ago. So we're in our 40th year this year, which is very exciting. But as you mentioned, it started with just a handful. So there was a mass stranding of false killer whales in Crowdy Head in New South Wales, Australia, back in 1985, and there were 62 false killer whales that stranded. And no one really knew what to do. There was no protocols in place. No one really understood any way that you could rescue or rehabilitate these animals. But some very dedicated locals decided that that wasn't good enough, and they popped some of the false killer whales on the back of their ute, and they took it around to a sheltered fishing port. And really, through trial and error over the course of 3 days, they managed to refloat and rescue 33 of the 62 individuals, which is just extraordinary. Those outcomes today would be amazing. And so they decided, let's harness the knowledge that we had as part of that experience. Let's put a group together and let's see if we can share that knowledge so that we can help improve outcomes when these things happen again.
One of the constant themes through the podcast has been what happens when people come together. And it's just another great example of people coming together to solve this problem that had never been thought about in that way before.
That's right. And as you mentioned, we've now got 1,200 rescue responders in Australia, and we're looking to bring on another 400 in 2026. So it's definitely people power. People are very passionate to get involved, and our network just keeps growing and growing. And it's fantastic that we can share these skills along the coastline, which really helps improve outcomes longer term for marine mammals when these sorts of incidents happen.
What exactly is it that ORRCA does, and what kind of animals do you support and help?
So we essentially, as the name said, specialise in rescue and research. Our primary day-to-day function is rescue. So we run a 24-hour hotline where members of the public can call in if they spot a marine mammal emergency. So that might be something that they see happening on their beach or out on the water, which might involve a whale, a dolphin, a seal, or a dugong. So some common things that we might get called about would be an entanglement. So that might be a whale or a dolphin that's entangled in, say, commercial fishing gear, or, entrapped in a shark net, for example, in Australia. We see seals that also are impacted by marine debris. So again, entanglements, or they may have wounds that may be from things like vessel strikes or predation wounds from, nature effectively from sharks. So people will call our hotline, and what we'll then do is put a plan in place to respond to that animal. So that might be a rescue effort, that might be a rehabilitation effort, or, it might in some instances also be palliative care. So depending on what the situation entails, we'll put a response in place with whoever we need to be working in whatever part of the coastline to try and get help to that animal.
And how many rescues would you say that you do a year now?
So I was looking at our stats actually for 2025 during the week, and we took just shy of 2,500 calls to the hotline for the year. Most of those incidents happen between sort of April and November, which is the peak whale migration season. Um, we responded to 900 incidents. So that is 900 times that we have been required to respond to an incident on the ground with volunteers. So that number is growing year on year.
I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the different species that you come into contact with.
Yep. So, before I joined ORRCA, like I said, you don't need to have a lot of experience. I probably wasn't well versed on the whale species. And now, after a few years, I'm just blown away, to be honest, about the diversity that's in the ocean and the diversity of animals that we respond to. So, I mentioned humpback whales, so they're our bread and butter. There's 50,000 of them that come along the east coast of Australia every year now, which is just magnificent and obviously very special. You can go to any beach in the middle of winter and you're guaranteed to spot one, which is just superb considering their numbers were down in the hundreds in the 1960s. So what a conservation story. But those humpback whales, we love and adore them. But we've got some lesser known whales in our waters. So we have southern right whales, unfortunately named the right whale because they were the right whale to hunt. They're incredibly social and curious. They'll often approach boats. They hang out in very shallow waters and do not very much sometimes. So they don't have a dorsal fin and they'll do what's called logging. So they'll essentially just lie on the surface of water and look a bit like a log. They're very rotund and they're black and white. And they are distinguished through the white markings on their forehead. So that will be a unique pattern that we can ID them by, which is wonderful. So we had one last year called paw print because she had sort of a little paw print on the front of her head, which is very sweet. Whereas humpback whales, you ID them through their tails. So that's a differentiator for you. We get different whales called Brutus whales as well, which is sort of similar to a humpback, but they've got a sort of different formation on their head and they're a little bit longer. We'll get blue whales occasionally. They're very special. And we get a lot of the smaller whales. So people often don't hear of species like a melon-headed whale. And it's
Great
called a
name.
melon-headed. Great name. Wonder why it's called that. Its head's kind of like a little bit like a melon.
Is it shaped like a melon?
Yeah, bingo, you got it. Someone was very creative when they were coming up with that one. So melon-headed whales are a deep water species, so you rarely see them. We only really see them when they strand, unfortunately. We have false killer whales as well. We have orcas. And that's just, I haven't even scratched the surface of sort of the whale dolphin family, really, because there's so many different permutations and species that we respond to. We get a lot of strandings of Risso's dolphins as well. And Risso's dolphins are quite interesting to look at because they have a lot of rake marks on their body. So as part of sort of their social hierarchies, the males will rake at each other with their teeth. So they have these like incredible scars all over their body.
What an
which is
interesting thing to do.
Yes. And so they're quite aggressive when they want to be. So, well, with each other. And so they're very interesting when you get up close and you see their markings as well. And then we've got our seal families as well. So the two common ones that we get are Aussie fur seals, so Australian fur seals, and long-nosed fur seals. And they look very similar, except, as you might guess, another creative name, the long-nosed fur seals have a bit of a longer nose.
I mean, in terms of creativity, that's probably one of the least creative names.
I would say so.
Longer nose, shorter tail.
That's right. That's right. And then we've got leopard seals. So leopard seals are very rare for us to see where we are in Australia, but they're from the Antarctic region. So we'll occasionally get a couple that will be in our waters and they'll pop up on one of the beaches for a bit of a rest for a little while. So that's very unusual. But leopard seals are very quick and very aggressive. So anytime we get a leopard seal, we actually have to call the police and get the police to help rope off the area for everyone's safety.
Oh my goodness. I never thought that I would hear that in this conversation, which is if you see this particular type of seal, don't go near it, call the police.
That's
Very
right. So
unexpected.
I think people think of seals like sea puppies, and then they're not. They can be very cute and very wonderful when they're basking in the sun, but they can also be very quick. So,
Yeah.
leopard seals are ones that you don't want to mess with. And we get what we call on the hotline, we call them subbies, but sub-Antarctic fur seals, and they're quite little, and they're very cute, and they're from Antarctica also.
What a range that you look
Yes.
after. And it's interesting because from what I understand, when whales and I imagine other marine species as well are going through migration, they migrate really long distances. I mean, what are some examples of the distances these sea creatures travel?
Yeah, so humpback whales will travel from Antarctica, or the Great Southern Ocean, so the Antarctic waters, which is where their primary feeding grounds are. And then they will migrate north and they will come to the southern Great Barrier Reef. I've actually got a really good story to tell you on this, if you could indulge me. So this story I've got actually pertains to a humpback whale, but it pertains to an albino humpback whale.
Oh.
So we had reports, this would have been, say, November last year, from a spear fishing boat, and they said, "Oh, we've seen a white whale come past." And, we get a few calls like this, and not to say that it's not legitimate, it's more so that white whales are extraordinarily rare, like they're extraordinarily rare. So you might get whales that are mostly white, or you might get whales that have not a whole heap of pigmentation, but to have an all white whale is unheard of. To have a true albino whale is like next level unheard of. And so we sent out our drone operators and they managed to find it, which was extraordinary. As I said, finding a whale is a needle in a haystack. And this was incredible. We found it in the end. And we managed to get 15 seconds of footage of this whale. And still we couldn't tell that it was 100% white, but it was looking pretty good. But you still couldn't see the underside because we just had the aerial view. But we got images of the tail fluke. And we popped it up on our social media just saying, this is interesting. There's a sighting of a potential white whale. Within a few minutes, Happy Whale contacted me. So Happy Whale are the global ID platform for humpback whales. So which is incredible. The job they do is amazing. What you do with Happy Whale is you send them photos of your humpback whales, of their tail fluke. So if you've been out in a whale watching cruise, or you're really into whales, you send them photos of the tail flukes, and they will use an AI algorithm to see if that whale has ever been sighted before, and if not, they'll log it as a new sighting. If it has been sighted before, they'll tell you all the places it's been seen before anywhere in the world.
Fascinating.
They might be able to tell you its heritage. So they might be able to go, we also know that one's mum is such and such. They'll tell you if it's got a name. Happy Whale will give you all the info. So if you've got some photos of your whale, put them on Happy Whale, and you'll see what comes back. But Happy Whale contacted me straight away, and they said, "We've got an ID on your whale." They said, "We've tracked this down to a white calf that was born in Tonga the year before, in 2024." And so we looked at the images and they all matched. And so we decided to do some further investigation. So this is late at night and I'm like scouring the internet, trying to find who took the original pictures of this whale underwater. And I found this beautiful couple, Tris and Dave Sheen, again, see if they're listening. They had been with this whale for about 3 weeks in Tonga. So they had this white whale that had been born in Tongan waters, and they had kind of done a bit of a job there to keep it quite protected and keep a lot of people away from it. But they had this incredible underwater footage. So they, late at night, we're on the phone, all getting a bit excited, and they're showing me this footage. And from that footage, we were able to determine the sex. So we knew it was a female calf. We could determine it was all white, and we could determine she was a true albino. So she had red eyes, which is one of the hallmark characteristics from their footage. So this is like discovery of a lifetime. We kind of broke the news of sealsThe in Australia, and being the only second identified albino humpback whale on the east coast. But what was also extraordinary is she'd come from Tonga and she turned up in Australia. So not only was this just mind-blowing in terms of the discovery of a whale, it really challenged our thinking about migration, because we would always assume that she would go back to Tongan waters and not come to Australian waters. We're hoping to sight her again soon, because we'd love to learn more about her, which would just be extraordinary.
Fabulous. Just the idea of a white whale and having something so unique, and it coming, as you said, all the way from Tonga. What are some of the other organizations that you work with?
There's a lot of different people that we call and coordinate, but it really depends what the incident is and who we need. We actually had an entanglement last week, and they ended up in an area that was a military zone. This whale did, and the Navy ended up helping us out trying to spot the whale before they conducted their military exercises, which was extraordinary. That what a response. Effectively, we kind of can rope in anyone that's needed when needed.
I bet them when they were talking about their day, it was not a usual training military exercise involved in helping with a whale.
That's it. We might have given them a bit of extra excitement for the day. You never know.
What's an example of one of the more complicated recoveries that you or ORRCA more broadly have been involved in?
The ones that are really tricky are whale entanglements. So if you can imagine, a humpback whale weighs 40 tons. It's
Ooh.
moving. Yeah, it's bigger than a bus. It's moving quickly. If it's entangled in rope or netting, the first thing that's really challenging is to even spot that animal again. So if you think about humpback whales, they deep dive, they may be underwater for extended periods of time and not pop up for a while. To find that animal again is extraordinary. And I'll give you a live example of a rescue that I was involved in. There was a humpback whale that became entangled in some gear, and we spotted it about 5:30 in the evening off the northern beaches of Sydney. And at that point, it's middle of winter, the sun is setting, it's very low light. There is no chance we're getting help to that animal tonight, which is obviously heartbreaking, because you want to get help to that animal as quickly as possible. But first thing the next morning, we had spotters out looking for it again, and it popped up not very far from where it was first sighted, and this entanglement was much worse by the morning. So that humpback whale, had obviously been very stressed, been moving its body trying to dislodge the entanglement, and made the whole thing a lot worse, unfortunately. I was down there at the scene where we re-sighted the whale, and you could hear the distress. The whale was calling out in distress, and it was sort of reverberating around this bay. The disentanglement team got out to the animal, and we had one of our drone operators flying above the whale, and he was in direct communication with the boat below, because they couldn't see the extent of the entanglement from water level. So this disentanglement took 4 hours. Wonderful drone pilot Steve Trickolas, I'm going to give him a shout out, was on well done, Steve, was on the phone down to the boat, go around to the left pectoral fin and cut it here, and oh no, it's wrapped around another area. And like I said, 4 hours of this, and they managed to free this whale. So that was in less than 24 hours, we had managed to not only sight the whale, re-sight the whale again, get a boat out to it, and get it disentangled in what the large whale disentanglement team said was probably their most complex they'd run in 20 years. Was extraordinary. So for us, that was just a, a big moment of success. This was something that was really special to us as a team.
Yeah, fantastic outcome. And it doesn't sound like it was an easy thing to achieve either. I mean, 4 hours and drone and people coordination. I mean, if the marine creature is injured, is there somewhere that you take it?
It depends on the size of the animal, if I'm being frank.
Yeah,
So
that's a good point. If it's a
yeah,
humpback whale, it's probably a little bit more challenging to reaccommodate.
if we can fit it on a mat or fit it, essentially on the back of a ute in a cage, we can transport it to a facility where it can get some extra help. I was actually at Taronga Zoo over the weekend, and we were with a seal called Bondi, and Bondi had been was found on Bondi Beach in Australia as a 9-month-old pup with a massive shark wound on the side of his body, the poor pup, and obviously without his mum. And so at that point, he was taken to Taronga, and they actually spent 3 to 4 weeks treating that wound with Manuka honey. They were telling me, obviously a medical grade. Again, don't try this at home.
Yeah, yeah. Don't lather yourself in honey.
That's it. I'm not giving medical advice, but effectively, they managed to recuperate this seal, and Bondi is now 18 years old, and he still has some wounds he's a scar from his shark bite, but he had a miraculous recovery and went on to live a very happy life. Unfortunately, given his age, he was only 9 months and not with his mum, he wasn't able to be re-released to the wild. But he's gone on to recover and live a great life, which otherwise, wouldn't have been possible. So that's the type of things that we can achieve when we're called out to an incident and we can respond and get that animal help.
That's a great positive news story. And I think Taronga also do an amazing job of creating an environment which is good for the animals that and the marine creatures that it has. So it sounds like Bondi had a good life after a rocky start.
That's right. That's right. And they really do. Their philosophy is, rehabilitation, and they will do that in every instance possible. And so we really support the work that they're doing, and they're fantastic partners to us in helping to recuperate and rehabilitate animals that we can then successfully release in the wild.
It sounds like research is another really big pillar of the work that's done by ORRCA. So it'd be
Mhm.
really great to understand a bit more what kind of research does ORRCA do?
So a lot of our research is around population monitoring. So we hold an annual whale census every year, which is fantastic. It's a big
Do you
community
get them
event.
to fill in the
Yeah,
form?
that's it. If they could just fill in their card as they pop past, the harbour bridge, that would be wonderful. We ask everyone to come out on one day to the nearest headland and count the whales, and they submit their sightings. As part of our census last year, I think we had 160 sites covered between Tasmania and far north Queensland. We had 600 people who were what do I say, official volunteers doing the count, but we had a lot more people who just come out to do it and experience the day anyway, because it's a bit of a fun day out whale watching. We run another more formal study, which is called the East Coast Migration Project, and that is where we have teams going out to the same place at the same time every day at 4 different locations. So they're doing a more formal count of the whales to understand population density, which is a very long-term project that we've been running.
You've had a number of years with ORRCA. What
Yeah.
have been some of the most wonderful moments for you?
So a particular instance, I guess, that stands out for me was I got a really early morning phone call saying that a striped dolphin had stranded at a beach near where I lived. And so pop the slings in the car and I pop my wetsuit on, and you're kind of not sure what you're going to arrive to. And we arrived, and it was middle of winter. So winter's morning on the beach. It was sideways rain. It was probably about 5 degrees. It was absolute misery. The wind was up. You couldn't hear yourself speak, and there was a couple of us down on the beach starting to triage this dolphin. And all these members of the public all of a sudden got the leftover dolphin mats that we weren't using and started holding them up as a shield for us, just to make sure that us and the dolphin were protected from that whip of the sand, and just such a lovely thing to do. So we relocated the dolphin to a quieter bay, a couple of 100 meters away, and we began sort of in-water rehabilitation of the animal, and the water was freezing because it was, again, middle of winter. We're all in 5 mil wetsuits, but it was miserable. So we were taking shifts, 20-minute shifts in the water, and we were doing this on rotation for almost 7 hours. But over that time period, we had members of the public turning up with hot teas, coffees, biscuits. We had the local restaurants come, down. Some of our members didn't have wetsuits, so the local surf shop just went and whipped some off the rack so we could get more people rotating, in the water. We had council there. We had to, I was FaceTiming Taronga Zoo, talking to them about what was going on with the dolphin. What really struck me was that I left with such a sense of community, because sometimes, when you're volunteering and you wonder, oh gosh, is it just me that feels really passionate about these sorts of things, and then you realize it's not. The whole community was so invested in this dolphin, in us, in helping everyone that was there and responding and making sure that everyone, including the dolphin and us, had the best possible care and love. And it was so incredible because there was so many people involved, and the outpouring of community just in that little moment was incredible. And it was something I really took away, thinking like, gosh, everyone does really care. And I think sometimes, with the world where it is at the moment on a personal level, you lose a bit of, faith in humanity sometimes. And this really was one of those restoration moments for me where I thought, oh goodness, like what a beautiful community I live in, and how beautiful are humans. I really had that moment. So it was really touching.
I think really at their core, most people just want to help. And it sounds like you got to experience that real time. And then what have been some of the unexpected moments that you've had with ORRCA?
I think for me, probably the depth of connections that I've made with people, to be honest. I know that's not an answer sort of in terms of the animals that I deal with, but, if for me, the connection has been incredible. I think I didn't just join as a volunteer. I sort of accidentally joined this community in a way. And I think there is that sense of sort of solidarity and partnership in what you're doing, and a real sense of belonging. And I think that has surprised me to the extent that that's impacted my life, and the connections that I've formed, and really enriched it in such a positive way. So for me, that's been huge, has been the people factor, because I think I joined for the animals and I ended up, with all the people as well. But, that's not a bad outcome, right? To get some more friends that are passionate about similar things to you. But that sense of belonging and community was unexpected for me. I didn't go into it looking for friends. I went in there just going, well, how can I help? So that was a really positive outcome for me personally.
It's another example, I should say, of the intersection between people and animals and other people I've spoken to. It's funny because the lady that I interviewed from Dr. Kate Farquharson, who I interviewed from Koala Conservation, said exactly the same thing. So there's obviously something about communities coming together for a common cause to help something that it ends up bonding them as a community as well. It sounds like you have got so much out of your experience with ORRCA, like it's had such a positive impact on your life. Thank you so much for joining me today, Pip. It has been absolutely amazing having you on the podcast. I have really enjoyed hearing about all of the work, the incredible work that ORRCA are doing around the recovery and rehabilitation of marine animals. But also I've learned a fair bit about the marine animals themselves, and the fact that yet again, there's a beautiful example of when people come together and connect on a common cause, the incredible things that can be achieved.
Thank you for having me and letting me sort of talk, to death about all things marine mammals, because it's very passionate to my heart. So it's been wonderful.
I will be sharing details of the work that ORRCA are doing, their website, and other ways that you can connect in with them in the comments section. Please like, share, subscribe. If you know anyone who needs a little bit more joy in their life, please share the podcast with them. And if you know any people or organizations who are doing incredible things to make the universe a greater place, please get in touch. Until next time, Greativerse over and out.